Real people, real opinions.
Real Talk Radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.
Ireland's classic hits.
Adoption was in the news today. The Adoption Authority of Ireland has said there has been a seismic change in the relation of sharing adoption information. And this, of course, is following the Birth Information and Tracing Act 2022, which was brought into force last year. Now, as most of you know, this change in law allowed for the full release of the identity to all relevant persons, adopters and adoptees aged 16 and over. At one time, there was a big conversation around whose rights were more important. That right of the birth mother to stay anonymous in her privacy, or the right of the child to know where they came from. And the law decided the child had more rights. And that's, of course, why we have that legislation. Now, that conversation has been put to rest, but the issue of adoption had us talking in the office today. And we know it is notoriously difficult to adopt in Ireland. Domestic adoptions are rare. There are many reasons for this. There are great supports financially for mothers who are struggling. And, of course, we have a very active fostering system. What I want to know this evening is it always best to keep the child with the birth mother? Or is it better for the children to be adopted out to families who take better care of them? Now, I'm thinking specifically of a mother and a father who are in, say, active drug addiction. Should the child remain in that circumstance? Or maybe they're alcoholics. Should the child remain in that circumstance? Or maybe there's domestic violence in the home. Should the child remain in that circumstance? Or maybe they just are neglectful parents. Should the child remain in that circumstance? Or would that child be given a better life somewhere else? You could argue that the drug addicts may love the child, really want the child, but just incapable of looking after them because they can't look after themselves. But is the child really better with somebody who probably doesn't love them as much, but will take care of them? So what do you think? Is a bad birth parent better than a good adopted parent? In other words, now we know that we're talking about dysfunctional bad parents rather than functional bad parents. So is a bad parent better than a good adopted parent? That's the question that I'm throwing out there. And I suppose specifically we are talking about drugs. I remember watching a documentary some time ago on RTE, and there was two parents in it, and they were arguing over who had the most amount of methadone while the baby was sitting in a buggy. And they were excited that they were getting their new house from the council. And I'm going, that baby should be with them. But people argued with me at the time and said, oh, no, they really wanted that child. They're off the heroin now. They're on the methadone. And I said, what's the difference? They're still addicted. Anyway, should the parent be given back the child? Or in some places, like in America, in certain states, you have to be clean for 6 months before they'll allow you to take the child home from the hospital. Whereas in Ireland, you can be strung out of your head and walk out of the Coombe or the Rotunda with a baby in your arms if you're capable of holding it. I remember one day walking through Cork Street, and the Coombe Hospital there. It's Cork Street, isn't it? And there was a woman walking down the centre of the road with a buggy out of her box completely. Guard went over to her, moved her back up onto the footpath. I was talking to the guard afterward, and he said she was a known drug addict. She had just had a baby. I mean, what sort of life is that baby going to have? That baby is destined, sadly, to be dysfunctional if they stay with those parents. But some people will argue that she loves it, and she should be allowed to keep the baby. So is a bad birth parent better than a good adopted parent? Let me know what you think. The number is 087 188 0008. That's 087 188 0008. That's the number to WhatsApp. Let me go to Jason first if I can. Jason, hi, how are you?
Good evening, Niall. How are you?
Good, Jason. Look, no, a man is well used to having children. Yeah.
Yes, in relation to your first, what you were talking about first with Russell Brand, I've never watched the bloke. No, we don't really give a monkeys about his life. But that's the new world now. We are living in the new world, and that's it. It's tried by social media. It doesn't matter. Allegation made. Big corporation don't want nothing got to do with you. Nothing got to do with you, just in case it is true. And that's what they're hedging their bets on, just in case. If it's not, we might try and build them back up.
But it should be a case of if it's true, absolutely. I understand. I remember many years ago, there was an individual I knew in radio, and there was an allegation made against him, right? And the radio station that employed him kept him there, even though the allegation was in the paper. Now, this is before social media came along. And until his day in court, and until the day he was found guilty, he still worked for the radio station. And on the day that he was found guilty of the crime, he was then let go from the radio station.
That's proper. In a proper functioning world, that's how it'd be. But after what's gone before, the last couple of years, the way things are, big companies don't want to take a chance whatsoever. And I'd say there is men in their 70s down to probably their mid-50s
shitting themselves in the entertainment business, the movie, the music, anything to do with that, where that type of stuff was, I'm not going to say acceptable, but it went on, and everybody sort of knew it went on, and certain people used it to their advantage and climbed the ladder.
Here's a little one for you. I talked to a PR expert in the UK yesterday. I was getting him as a guest for the podcast, actually, and we were yapping away, gossiping as you do, as Irish people do. And I said to him that very thing. I said celebrities all over Britain, in particular at the moment, must be shitting themselves, particularly the older ones. I said, they must be shitting themselves, wondering who's next. And he said, you know who's next, don't you? And I went, no. And he told me.
And do we all know who it is?
I'm not saying. I'm not getting involved. I'm not getting involved in idle gossip.
No, but you know what I mean? Is he going to be another household name?
Yes.
Because that's the way it was. That was the nature of the business back then. And certain people used it to their advantage to climb up the ladder. Certain girls used it. Certain ladies used it to get into the business. I mean, that's the way it was. But times have changed. And I'm glad. I'm just glad I am the way I am.
Well, getting back to the way you are, with 8 kids, you're well aware of what it's like to be a birth parent. But is a child better off? Let's say, for example, you and your missus start getting strung out on drugs, right? Is a child still better off with you, or should we adopt that child out?
See, that's the thing. Strangers. Are you better off with strangers? You know my feeling on creches. A creche will never give your child the same love as that you will. Your child falls over in a creche. Okay, the creche people are going to go over and look after that child. But if your child falls over at home, he's running to mommy or daddy, and mommy and daddy are giving him a big cuddle.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know.
That's the difference. That's the difference. Yeah, I mean, maybe take the child away, help them, help the family get better. You know that way. I mean, it's always better for a family to be together, Niall. I mean, it really is. I'm sure if you ask, say you ask 100 adopted kids, okay, that were adopted out of these dysfunctional families, blah, blah, blah. Who would you rather be with? I'd like to know what the stats would be on that. You know, how many kids would say, no, I want to go home to mommy and daddy, or how many kids would say, no, I have a better life here. Like, younger kids wouldn't remember anything, so they'd have no memories.
Well, hang on, you're saying they don't remember. And maybe maybe they don't.
I'm talking about
no, and so am I.
You were talking about.
So am I.
But I'm saying that if you take an 8 or a 9-year-old out of their away from their parents, right, and put them into foster care, they're going to have a lot of memories. Where if you take a newborn or a 1 or 2-year-old from a drug addicted family, they won't have as many memories. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm. No, I get the point you're making. I'm just going to say the damage that has been done, because an awful lot of damage can be done to a newborn child if it doesn't get the love or the cuddles or the hugs.
It's the bonded. It's the bonded. It's the main thing. The bonded is the main thing. I mean, I've always said it, and I know it's for another discussion. I believe society's problems are when we convince people we needed 2 people working and put their kids in a second warehouse and let other people work them. I'm a strong, esteemed believer. Just the way my kids are brought up, and I'm not going to get into it, but just a certain person I know how their kids were brought up. They were all brought up in creches. Mine weren't. The empathy is different. Honestly,
absolutely.
I'm telling you now, you can see, and you're not allowed to say that, because how dare you tell women they can't go to work? I never said it was all about women going to work. I'm a strong believer in one parent should look after your child or your children.
If you can afford it.
To work.
Yeah, if you can afford it.
It's nothing to do with afford it. Cut your cloth. I cut my cloth. I decided I wanted my kids and I wanted us to wear our kids, and I decided how we were going to live. It can be done. People are snobs now. People want the best of houses, the best of cars, the best of everything. They want to outdo their neighbour. But little do they know, all they're living on is credit, and the kids are being brought up by strangers, and now we're having the problems we're having.
See, what people have forgotten is the child really doesn't want the iPad. The child really doesn't need the PlayStation. All a child wants is love.
Yeah, and one of their parents there, when they come home, they want to tell mommy or daddy all about their day, all about the boy or the girl who upset them, all about I fell off my bike or scored my first goal.
Do you know what? And you're right, Jason, because you know what the most upsetting times of my life were? When I say upset,
the fourth kids walks and talks.
No. Well, I missed that too, because I had to work sometimes, right? But no, the most upsetting times of my life were when I was a child. I can still remember walking through the gate of Mrs. Curtis's house. She lived 2 doors down from us, right? And she was a wonderful woman. So if my mother went to me granny's, she would say to us in the morning, when you're coming home today, go to Mrs. Curtis's house. She looked after. And I was so sad that I wasn't going in to see my mum, because You remember
Routine.
that? Yeah.
It was routine. Noel. You knew when you went in, Mammy had such and such ready. You done such and such, and then you done such and such.
I miss
and
me,
what
man.
do kids need? What do kids need in their lives? And I'm not going to say I'm an expert. I didn't go to college, but I've had 8 of them, so I might know a bit more than people who write books straight out of college. Kids need routine. It doesn't matter what it is. Kids thrive on routine. That's what kids need in their lives. They need to know they're getting up at a certain time. They're doing this, bump. They need to know Mammy and Daddy are the bosses, blah, blah, blah. Not some person in the creche they're going to tell everything to. And then Mammy and Daddy has them at the weekend. And it's terrible that we've made that as a society.
I don't know. You're bringing back so many memories, actually. It's actually sad. Very sad now.
So there's kids, so there's kids now being brought up by a creche, but with parents who are working who have no time for them. And there's probably a set of parents who have addiction problems, but who love and adore their child and who spend every waking minute with that child. So now whose children are better off?
But here's the thing. The story I mentioned there about the drug addict that came out of the Coombe Hospital was walking down the centre of the road, struggling down the centre of the road, and the guard moved her over onto the footpath. And I was talking to the guard, and he said she's a known drug addict. Is that child better off with her? Not really. Couldn't be.
Well, why not? Would anybody love that child more than its mother? At the moment, okay, the mother's in addiction. She loves the drug. But I'm sure with the proper help and support and people around, I mean, there's enough do-gooders out there, isn't there? There's enough do-gooders out there that love to wrap their arms around anybody with problems. But let's go out and help a few of these problems to keep families together.
Okay, well, hang on. Stay there for a second. Let me go to Cliff as well.
It is a money-making racket as well, you know.
Oh, well, look, the foster care industry in Ireland, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good foster care parents, but the foster care industry is a money-making racket.
There is,
Yeah.
but we've a lot of horror stories as well, Niall.
Absolutely. Hang on, let me go to Cliff. Cliff, hi, how are you?
Yeah, Neil, all right, how are you keeping?
Good. Cliff, is a child better with, dysfunctional maybe parents or adoptive parents?
Let me just say, just before we start, I just want to say, you mentioned the Coombe there. It's my twins. They were 5 years ago. Tomorrow they were born the 20th of September up in the Coombs.
Oh, right, okay.
But,
Okay.
Yeah, they're up in the Coombe. Jack and Luke, and unfortunately Luke died after 6 weeks.
It's a wonderful. It's a wonderful maternity hospital.
It's a great hospital. We were up there, and unfortunately Luke was sick and he died. But
Oh, well, I'm so sorry to hear that, Cliff.
yeah, but Jack is still here. He's here tomorrow. It's their 5th
Well,
birthday. But,
I'm sharing my birthday with him the following day. Mine is the 21st. So,
Are you 21st?
I'm a lot older than he is. I'm 60.
A couple of years between you.
Your birthday is.
What did you say, Jason?
I says, we know, you tell us every year when your birthday is.
Yeah. By the way, birthday cards can be sent to Classic Hits, Castle Forbes House, Castle Forbes Road. I did a big push on it one year, and I got 362 birthday cards.
You did not, did you?
I did. Yeah, I did a bit. It was about 4 years ago. I did a big push on it for 2 weeks.
You got some weird presents in them as well, didn't you?
No, we didn't. No, honestly, people did send me mugs and sweets and things like that, but no, I
No,
didn't.
I was thinking of more spit on me dicky, you know, when you throw the knickers.
Oh, right, okay. Women's G-strings and underwear. But yeah, I got I think it was 362 or 364 cards I got that year because we kind of did a big push on it for the crack. You know?
Yeah.
Popular
Sorry,
man,
no, so that was that caller there. Sorry, what's that other gentleman's name?
Cliff.
Cliff.
How are you doing, Jason?
Listen, I've had kids in all the hospitals. I'm sorry to hear about your loss, and happy birthday to your son, and I'm hoping you're doing okay.
Thank you.
And happy birthday, by the way, to your son who passed away as well.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because very bittersweet, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, Cliff, getting back to which is better, bad parents or adoptive parents?
Like you said there, when you mentioned the Coombe about bad parents, and my missus was fucking trying her best to make sure our boys were right, and then we'd be outside, and there'd be women about to push the babies out, chugging cigarettes outside the door of the Coombe, and whatever else they're on, and you're saying, like, do they really give a shit about the child that's inside them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do they really care as much as other women would care about that child inside them? They're not showing like they are, you know? So, as you said, the woman's strung out on drugs. I know she's an addiction, but she shouldn't have got pregnant, right? She should have stayed away from getting pregnant if she's an addiction, if she, you know, bring a child into that.
And do you believe if somebody has an addiction, the child should be given to them at all, or maybe like America taken off them until they're 6 months clean?
That woman's not going to be able to care for that child properly. You know, she's in the throes of addiction where she's basically trying to manage that, and if she can get off the drugs, but the child is not going to be the priority. You know.
But there is an argument, and Jason makes the argument that if she got support, the child would be a good reason for her to get off the drugs. You know, whereas if she didn't have the
Yeah.
child, she may give in.
Yeah. That's true. And I've been around people who've been in addiction and got out of it, and great parents, and like
Kids do change people.
Yeah.
It can.
Kids do
'cause,
change people.
You know, like I have my own kids and you do anything for them, but it's not everybody has that love or paternal or maternal instinct that everyone else has. You know, some people don't love their kids as much as others. I don't.
Yeah, you are right. There are some people who see their kids as an inconvenience. Yeah.
Oh, a
Yeah,
cash cow.
Yeah, or cash.
Don't- Yeah. And don't get me wrong, at times they fucking drive you mad, and you're saying, Christ,
Absolutely.
I'm tired of them, and-
I wish they were somewhere else right now.
you
Yeah, I know.
yeah. One of mine just came down the stairs, and I was like, would you ever go to bed? I'm going to have an hour's peace. Let's go away to bed. And he's on the way up. I said, Niall is going to ring me on the phone. I need to answer the phone. But, yeah, but look, there's a case for people that just can't give the child a good life. Someone else can give them a better life. Someone that's maybe they can't have children, you know, and they could really give love to that child. And the child, it doesn't mean that the parents can't, like you said, have a relationship with the child later on down the line if they can get themselves sorted out.
Mm.
You know?
But then you're not messing with the child's head then. I mean, if you're fostering that child out for a better life, you're not better off than just saying, right, that is the child's new life. Everything beforehand does not, because if not, you're bringing that back into the child's life. And if that child has a great life, and next while you were saying, right, well, these are your real parents. Niall, I don't know how you felt. You were talking about being adopted. So, what did it feel like you the very first day you found out? Like, you know, did it change anything?
No, well, I was only 13. I didn't kind of really understand it when my dad said he was pissed. He was pissed when he said it to me, by the way. But
I know, I'm here to say that.
Yeah, it was New Year's Eve.
So that'd be my fear. So if you're going to do it, you do a clean break. You say, yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, you had your chance, but then do we say nobody gets a second chance? You know. So who do we prioritise then? The child's future or the parent's past?
I know you mentioned earlier on, you know, it's like, you know, parents dropping kids into a creche. The foster parent doesn't care as much as the parent does. And in a lot of cases, you might be right, Jason.
But don't get me wrong. I know there is. I know you had a great life, and I've heard that, and I didn't mean that, and I'm hoping I didn't upset you by saying
not
that.
at all.
But yeah, I know there is parents out there, and they've never told their child to adopt it and loved them till the day they die, and that is brilliant. But when they do find out, I'm wondering how would that change you? Like, do you look at that the person you thought was your parent and then think, oh,
yeah. So
would I
here's the
have had a
thing.
different life?
I met my real mother, you know, going back many years ago. I've met her a few times. She passed away there about 4 years ago, but I met her a few times. And the first time I met her, I remember this whole kind of thing of the build up to it, and now this is really exciting, and this is weird, and this is odd, and you know, and it was nothing.
The emotions.
Yeah, but it was an anticlimax, Jason, because
Was it?
Yeah, absolutely an anticlimax. Right? She was a nice woman. I was chatting to her, but I didn't feel like giving her a hug or calling her ma'am. Do you know what I mean?
Right, because you had a great life with your mum, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. So, but
Right.
I
but
did.
imagine you didn't. Okay, but just imagine you didn't, or there was a period in that time where you didn't, and then you met your biological mum. You know, like that's what I'm just thinking. Is a clean break for the child the best thing, or let the child have have this life and then say, okay, by the way, these are your real parents and this is the life you should have had. I'd be afraid then that you'd mess them up even more than if you left them with their biological parent, got the biological parent, all the support and wraparound we can do, anything we can do now. I mean, we're great at it now in this country at fucking looking after people. So would you not be better that way?
I mean, Cliff, do you understand the point? Well, hang on. Do you understand the point Jason is making there?
Oh, sorry, I was.
I mean, realistically, you can't replace, generally speaking, you can't replace the love that a biological parent will give if you support the biological parent if they have problems, obviously.
Well, no, the biological parent, as I said, is you have that bond from the child is their blood, flesh and blood, and a stranger mightn't be their flesh and blood, but you know yourself, Niall, that you love them and they love you as if you're flesh and blood. Just you know.
Yeah.
Many kids are still by their parents who have beat them.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
You know, like the bond of a parent and a child and a family bond is strong. It has to be. I mean, look what families do for each other. Look what some families do to each other. But look what some families do for each other. You know, I mean, that's the bond that you're trying to break. And we've always said blood is thicker than water. That's something we've always put out there.
Well, hang on. Stay there for a second. Let me just go to Alan as well. I have to go to Kate too. Alan, hi. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Oh, hang on, Kate. Just 2 seconds. No, you're okay, Kate. Hang on just for 2 seconds. Let me just squeeze Alan in before you there because he's been waiting a bit longer. Sorry, Alan, go ahead.
I think the two lads make great points, right? There's always different scenarios, right? But ideally, like, we need to put the child first, right? The parents are strung out on drugs. There needs to be intervention, right? But the problem is we've nowhere to put people out in this country. We don't offer those type of services. So then the child suffers because, as you said, that strung out one with the child the other day. We as a state put that child in danger, saying that we don't have the services there to support that mother or that child. Is what we do. So again, we're failing kids again, which is a consistent issue in this country. But people need to take personal responsibility to get involved in drugs in the first place. Yes, I know some people are born into it. Some people just fall into it. But there has to be some personal responsibility. I know people who have been adopted, who've gone on to have great lives and have no bad feelings against their parents who had their issues. So there is some very good foster parents, there's some bad foster parents. There's some good parents and some very, very bad parents. But I think we need those services there. So if someone is strung out in hospital having a child, they should be put in to a hospital or a different type of hospital where they could be
straight into rehab.
Yeah. When sadly, most children of addicts, heroin addicts in particular, are born addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
But the problem is we don't have those services here because everything's been
Sorry,
given away.
Niall.
Everything else.
Sorry, Niall. If you've spent any time in the neonatal, which I have, you will see the effects of that. And it is disturbing.
Oh no, I talked to a midwife once who told me on the air that she has witnessed babies being born and going into cold turkey.
I spent 6 weeks in neonatal with my son, and I witnessed a child in there that came through it, and it is the most disturbing thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The child goes into cold turkey because they've been denied the drugs once they're born. But Alan, in America, for example, if you're strung out and you have a baby, the baby's taken off you until you prove you're 6 months clean. And if you can't get clean in 6 months, that baby's adopted.
Then maybe that's what we have to do then, to go down that strict route. But in this country, we don't want people to take personal responsibility. We don't want to implement the law or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Does the biological parent then have any right to come back down and look for
it? No, the way they're looking at it is
after the 6 months.
I know if you're still strung out after the 6 months, the state takes the child becomes a ward of the state. In some states, every state is different in the way they deal with it. But generally speaking, that's the way it's done. Because I don't know about leaving a child in the care of somebody who's off their box, and they don't even know how to change a nappy because they're so strung out.
But that's what I mean. If there was, did they give kids to second bastards in prison? If you know what I mean.
Well, I know.
You have to bring that child up. So every child.
That's another thing as well. Yeah, raising babies in jail. You know what I mean? That's mad.
Like everybody, and that's what that legislation says today. Everybody has the right to know their biological parents, and is it not up then to the child who the child wants to live with them?
Well, do me a favour, Alan, stay with me just for a second because I want to bring Kate in just in relation to that conversation about the drugs and the drugs part of it. Sorry, Kate. Hi, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Good. You've been listening to Alan there, and obviously he has great concerns about children who are brought up or born into a situation where, the mother or father are on drugs.
Yes, yeah, no, I was just listening to you there. So basically, I was it's not to do with really adoption in a sense. It's more of a fostering, something I experienced. It's true, someone we know from home. Now I'm not going to disclose where I'm from because I just don't want to. I don't really want to put it through.
Yeah.
Put it through, like. So basically, this is kind of what happened, and I'll just explain what happened to it, and you can make your own assumptions through it or whatnot. And it was the end result. So basically, what happened was, I was very young at the time. This is back in the late 90s now at the time. So there was a family out in the countryside and they took on 3 kids that were there was 2 boys and a girl. So they were brothers and sisters, right?
Yeah.
So they were all siblings and they were sent out for foster care from another family that couldn't take care of them because they had a drug addiction and a drug issue. So what happened was the kids were taken off them and put into foster care to this family out in the country. And what happened was that they were there for about... And end result is that they were all taken away from the foster family over an assumption or an accusation that took place, which never happened at all. And it was admitted after that. But they were taken off the foster family and brought back to the original family. And 2 of them are now in prison, and 1 is on drugs. This is 25 years later, So
Right.
end result was that
The children would have been better off with the foster parents. Yeah.
pretty much that's just my opinion from what I've been hearing about you guys talking away tonight. That's just my opinion because of the fact that they had a chance to turn things around and it was absolutely fine, but obviously someone saying something occurred in a family and they were taken away and they had no chance to go back to where they were. So obviously there's more avenues opened if there was a chance that they were staying with their adoptive parents in a sense, but that's just my opinion on it. I could be totally off now, but
No, I get it, and I don't know, Alan, if you would agree that I think that children who are raised like that, like the girl I spoke about, who walked down the road with a baby who was strung out of her head, the child is destined to end up in jail with no education.
That's one of the routes, or dead in the side of the street, or prostitution, or wherever it may be. That's where they are heading. But again, because no one's prepared to step in, that's the problem. And we do need to, you need to put that child first. That child could have 50, 60, 70 years ahead of them, right? Apart from a parent that might be strung out on drugs, might only last another 10 or 15 years, or whatever it may be, right? So you're going to risk that child's future and their life in future because you don't want to intervene because, oh no, we can't intervene because the child must stay with the biological parents. At some point, you need to put the child first. And look, things are going to happen. People are going to have sex. People are going to get strung out and whatever else. It's going to happen. Like if people are on methadone or whatever, why not offer them birth control where they're get this? Why not do simple steps like that? But we won't do that because, again, their body, their right, their choice, whatever. And that's
I mean, we did have a charity on from New York once on the air, and people went crazy about it. We got complaints to the Broadcasting Authority and everything, which, by the way, we stood by, and thankfully the complaints weren't upheld. But it was a charity organisation that went around the streets looking for homeless women who are on drugs, and what they would do is they would offer them money to sterilise them and offer them money to use what they call permanent contraception, because she described one particular woman that was on the streets, and she said she's had 18 abortions, and
Jeez.
and she had 5 kids which were all out to adoption or foster care, but 18 abortions, and it's because a lot of these women who would be vulnerable on the streets and be on drugs would offer themselves up for prostitution for money. And unfortunately, they don't know the first thing about contraception, but that doesn't come into their head really when they're on the street, probably. And they get pregnant on a regular basis. So
I don't agree with the full-time sterilisation. I think if you were offering birth control, whatever it may be, over whatever, if that injection, whatever long that lasts for. Right?
But the thing was they were paying them. They were paying them to take, the coil, or paying them to take the bar, or paying them if they wanted to be sterilised. Yeah. And people didn't agree with that. And this is the charity. They thought it was a good idea because it reduced the amount of unwanted children. And reduce the amount of children ending up in care.
Yeah, but if you're paying them, it means you're giving them more money for drugs. So,
well, isn't that the argument? Yeah, but still, you are doing society a favour and doing future children a favour.
No, you are. But why can't we just offer them? I know what that injection that women get. I know men. Look, this is not just about women taking injections as well, right? Men should do it as well. That is the case around the street. That should happen as well.
Well, yeah, but I understand, but men don't have babies. That's the difference, isn't it?
No, I know that, but they are the part of it, regardless of what people tell you nowadays. It does take 2 people to tango.
Yeah, well, it does. Kate, do you believe that foster parents, generally speaking, will show the same love to the child as somebody, who may be an addict, but they may actually love the child? And the problem is we don't have support systems for them.
No, I think they would be more supportive than, I suppose, the biological parents, because it depends on the circumstances, obviously. Because, they're probably at a different standard to what the previous parents were to that child. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, it does depend on the circumstances, because the likes of a family now, if there was 2 parents there, they had a child and they were struggling with drug addiction and they had a baby and they couldn't manage and they had to give up the child for foster or adoption or whatever. You have then parents who are willing to take on a child with the, I suppose, financial responsibility to take on a child, as well as having certain morals to mind a child at that stage in their lives compared to the other family that might be struggling. Now, there's likes of families there now, and I'm not trying to tarnish anyone, but there's likes of parents there who are obviously struggling with that and are going to try their best to come back from dealing with taking drugs and trying to get away from the likes of that and try and do what's best for their child, that they'll probably eventually get back if they work their way up to get to a certain stage in their health and their life, you know, to improve. But there's parents there, and now I also know in the area I'm living in currently, there's a family there, and she has 2 children, and she's selling drugs, and basically the children are 2 or 3 years of age, and the children shouldn't be with her. They just should not be with her.
And I feel when I see kids, when I'm walking around the street and I see some couple strung out of their head, and I see a baby in a buggy with a bottle in its mouth or whatever, or I see some yoke and she has a child, I feel so sorry for the child, because the child is never going to have a chance in life. You know what I mean?
No. Look at what they're looking up to. Look at the morals they're looking up to as a baby, as a child growing up, thinking, oh, geez, this is okay. I can do this when I'm older because my mommy did it or my daddy did it. Do you know? So it's just, it's very sad when you see it from the outside looking in as well, seeing, as you probably see when you're driving along the road or you're walking along the road and you see that taking place in the middle of a dealing, and you see a child holding on to their mother and them doing that. Like, it's the barrack, it's disgusting. Like, what chance have they got? Like, but at the same time, I'm not going to turn around and say, oh, Jesus, shun the child away from the mother. That's a disgrace. You're a disgrace. It does depend on different circumstances for each mother and father, you know. So I seen
a girl there the other day, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she had a buggy, and there was a child. I'd say the child was about 2, and the child had a book in its hand, which I was surprised to see. Was when I tell you the rest of the story, because any child with a book in his hand is out with a good thing rather than a phone. But anyway, the child was about 2, and she started screaming at the child. The child did something wrong. I don't know, threw something out of the buggy or something. She slapped the child across the top of the head. Start roaring and shouting, calling him a little bollocks and all sorts of names, and names the child probably didn't even understand. But I said, what chance has that child got, you know, of ever growing up functional? Because we learn, you know, children are like sponges. You know, I mean, monkey see, monkey do. You know, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they do exactly the same as they get older. They'll figure when they get older the way to deal with things. You slap somebody across the head, and that's how you deal with it. You know, I mean, she gave him a good wallop across the top of the head. You know, and
the shouting and the roaring, and like if they're doing that,
but here's the thing: no shame, Kate. No shame. There was a lot of people around. No. Absolutely no shame. You know what I mean?
No one said anything.
No.
That's the problem.
You wouldn't. I suppose, in a sense, you wouldn't even approach it. Like, you wouldn't even just turn around and say, like, what are you doing to the child? Because they'll be throwing abuse at you. Then what are you saying about my child? Like, you know, what? Keep away from me. Like, you know, then they'll try and get into a fight with you. Like, you know, that's the problem.
The more times we continue to ignore all this type of stuff, the more it will continue to happen, and that's the problem. Like, the more we ignore it, the more it happens.
But would you, I mean, Alan, if you were in a supermarket and a mother was walloping our kids because he wanted something and crying, would you say something?
Yes, unfortunately, I often have done my, if I seen something that went on. My wife hates it when I do it, but sometimes I just have to.
Now, I'll give the dirty look, all right, but I'll generally walk away. I don't want to get involved in other people's lives. I just don't. Unless, now, don't get me wrong, if I felt she was physically harming the child, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, if the child was at some sort of risk, I probably would, of course.
It depends. I seen this guy, he was coming to this girl one night. Myself and my wife, and he kept asking her, and she said no about 4 times. And I just turned at one point and said, listen, dumb nuts. She said no 5 fucking times. Now, piss off. And my wife was just hiding her hands going, Jesus Christ, do you ever stop? I'm going, no, because she said no, just piss off. Like. And yeah, sometimes
I think, you know, here's the ironic thing, I'm going to be talking about that later on. I would be quicker to do it with adults than I would. If I saw some guy hitting a girl, I would definitely intervene. Now, I'd probably be the worst for it and I'd get a box myself. As a mate of mine did many, many years ago. I'll talk about the story later on, but he intervened. He was with his girlfriend one night walking through Temple Bar, and they saw this couple arguing, and the guy was slapping the girl across the face. They were in their 20s. And the girlfriend said, but you go over and do something about it, like. So he went over, stood in the middle and said, listen, give it up, pal, and pushed your man away from her. And with that, within seconds, your woman took off her high heels, the girlfriend, and hit him across the back of the neck with the high heel. The high heel sunk into the back of his neck.
Yeah, they'd both team up and join in like that.
And he ended up
common enough, like.
Oh, he ended up getting 4.5 stitches. He was like a serious assault. Like, he got 4.5 stitches.
Yeah, no. If I had seen 2 people like that, I definitely would. I'd bring the guards in that. So that's what I would do.
But by the time the guards comes, it was a genuine case. The poor girl could have got the head boxed off her. You know what I mean?
Right.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
Hi, Niall.
Nice to talk to you. Mary, it's an interesting conversation, and, is it kind of, is blood thicker than water, etc., nature, not nurture, all those kind of cliches, but is a child better off with its biological parents, even if they're slightly dysfunctional?
Well, like yourself, I was adopted. So my view on it is every child is totally entitled to know who their parents are, but not all parents are capable of bringing up their child.
No, this is true. Yeah.
So, like, in my case, my mother was in one of those homes, and, like, she actually turned to alcohol because I was actually placed for adoption without her consent. So, like, I could have been in that situation, but I wasn't. Now, I was lucky like that. I met my parents married, so I met them, and I had 8 great years with my dad. Now, my mum is still alive, but sadly, we don't get on at all. She had like some serious issues, and
okay.
I suppose mollycoddled over the years, and I can guess where all this is coming from. Like, my view is like, no child should be subjected to any of that. I'm in childcare now. I was a hairdresser, and I look at it from the child's point of view now. And yes, nature, nurture, and all that, it doesn't apply all the time, because you see every day, you see people with their children in their shops and whatever, as you say, and like it's sad, really.
Yeah.
But like, every child deserves the right to life and a good life.
Well, I see great parents, but I also see some very bad parents.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, you don't have to look too far for any of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, every child is entitled to a good upbringing. Let that be with their adoptive parents, their foster parents, or their own parents.
Going back to the story I mentioned earlier on there about, say, a drug addict or a heroin addict, should the baby be taken off them until such time as they prove they're clean?
100%. What life are they going to have?
And how long do you leave it then before, okay, you foster care the child for a few months and see does the mother get clean? If they don't get clean, how long do you leave it before you put the baby out permanently for adoption?
But there's loads of protocols now in place for all that kind of stuff. Like, there's what they call access. So they would have access after, say, a certain period of time. I think it's 6 months. I'm not 100% sure on that. But they would have access, but it would be supervised access. And it would, like, it's like a building foundation. Say if you were to go into somebody else's home to live there, you have to build up a relationship. Like, these things can't be turned on and off.
Yeah, but Ireland is one of the few countries where you can walk out of a maternity hospital off your head with your baby in your arms. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately.
I don't think that's a good thing,
wrong.
by the way. Yeah, well, it is wrong. You're right.
Oh, yeah, it's so wrong.
And unless you come to the attention of social services, the baby's not going to get taken off you.
Yeah. Unfortunately. And it's like in all the childcare professions, like, the money is so bad. No one wants to go into these careers. No one. And like, you see, like, I have friends who are, say, working in these care homes. And like, there was one guy in particular that I'd be very friendly with who has kids from the age of 4 up to the age of 12. And like, it's just unreal, what's to be seen.
Yeah.
But like, these things aren't spoken about enough. And people aren't made aware enough. And plus, the people that are working in those jobs are not getting paid now.
Yeah. I do applaud many of the foster parents that are out there, by the way. But the other thing, the foster industry is widely abused as well by people who are,
100%.
making money out of it. You know what I mean? And it does
there's a
pay
lot.
well. I would rather see a
there are a
child.
lot.
I would rather see a child being adopted to some good parents, and there are many good parents in this country looking for children, because there's very few domestic adoptions. Going to a good home for the rest of its life, then be passed, around like pass the parcel from one foster parent to another for a period of 2 years while man and dad gets clean. I would rather see the child just go to a permanent good home.
Absolutely. Like, I have siblings who are also adopted, and like, I out of the 3 of us was the only one that found my birth parents. Like, it wasn't a facility that was available to them, and I suppose it was. I suppose I'd be very, very open. I've been talking to you before about this, and it's like, it's not there for everyone. Every child, in my view, has a right to know their parents, but if they're going to be at a loss or in danger, then that's not something that they should get until they're old enough to be able to make up their own mind. And that's another niche, because, like, what's old enough, Like, it's 18 now, or 16. You can start your process at 16, and you can find out your details at 18 or whatever. But I still think that's way too young. Like, I'm in my 50s, and I'm just only after getting my details. And, like, there was an awful lot of stuff in it, and it's like, you have to think on the wider, like, the bigger picture, as the man says, like, it's like, given that amount of details to an 18-year-old, sure, they're not going to be, they don't know what they want to do in college, never mind deal with all this, because it's too much.
Okay, well, do me a favour. Well, hang on a second, because I'm going to go to a break shortly. I want to go to Dave, and I'm trying to get to Karen as well. But anyway, Dave, hi, how are you?
What's the crack?
Dave, I mean, I've been listening to Mary there. She's a rock of sense, God bless her. But do you believe that a child is...
Why do we not have people like that in positions of, like, power? Like,
I don't know. Maybe they were like Mary, and then they just change when they get a bit of power and they turn nutty. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. There's not enough nepotism, maybe.
Yeah. So Mary just doesn't know anybody in the political industry, so she can't get out of the political circle, so she can't get in there. Dave, when it comes to childcare and the right thing for a child, the question I'll ask again, is it better for them to be in a dysfunctional family or an adoptive parent's home? I mean, which is better?
Well, I mean, look, whatever is better for the child, like, I mean, whatever gives the child, like, the best chance of being a happy, functioning member of society, really. I mean, their upbringing, their education, love, like, that's paramount, regardless of where it comes from, your biological parents or maybe from an adopted home. I mean, I know plenty of people who are, like, step parents, and they are a million times better than the person that they've basically taken up the role from. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know lads who've gotten with women, and, like, the deadbeat dads haven't been around since the kids were babies, and, like, these lads look at these kids as their children. Like, they don't really make the distinction between, well, okay, somebody else helped to father them. Like, in their eyes, that's their child, and in the child's eyes, that's my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, biology, is a lot of it. I mean, in regards to people with, like, addiction issues, personally, I would like to see, at least give them a chance. Let them, if there was more social care there for them, if there were more, help in, like, to help a person get clean. I mean, not even just for the child, but I mean, if you give someone a reason to get clean and stay clean, that's one less drug addict on the street. I mean, there's a societal benefit to it as well, But no, in regards to it all comes down to the child. If the child is better looked after with adopted parents, then it's a bit of a no-brainer to me, really. Like, I mean, especially, like, if a child's in a place where they're being abused, like, physically, like being slapped around, why is that child better off in that house if daddy gets anger management issues as opposed to being in a house?
Is there anything at all in what? Okay, is there anything at all in what Jason was saying at the start of the show that? Okay, even if mom might, do heroin or do coke or whatever, or dad happens to be an alcoholic, that if the child is getting love, they're never going to get that same love, he believes, from a foster parent.
I don't get me wrong.
Well, you're right, Mary, define love, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I respect Jay, and, like, he makes some good points, but no, I'd have to disagree with him there. I'm sorry, but a child is better off not in a home with heroin addicts or alcoholics as opposed to a stable home where they go to bed at the same time every night, they get their food at the same time every day.
Their nappy is changed 5 times a day when they're a baby,
Their nappy. Yeah, I mean, the idea that we allow drug addicts to look after newborn babies, it boggles the mind. I mean, how is that allowed?
I know. I mentioned at the start there was a documentary in RT a couple of years, it was a few years ago now, and there was these two, and they were off their heads. And they were delighted because there was the corpo were giving them a house, and they were just after having a baby. And I'm going, look at the two of them. They can't even hold the baby properly. They don't know what they're doing. They then had an argument in the house with the baby there over who had the most amount of methadone, because the two of them were saying they were clean. They're not clean. You're on methadone.
But like anybody who even has a baby or a toddler in the house, and you're not on drugs, you know what I mean, and you're like, it's hard. It's just the sleepless nights. There's the wanting to tear your hair out. How in the name of Christ do we allow people like that to look after the most vulnerable members of society?
But the state were supporting this. This particular program was all about, isn't this great? We've got them off the heroin. They're on the methadone now, and they're looking after a baby.
Yeah, but you could be on methadone for.
You could. Well, methadone is just it's just a cheaper drug. That's all for the state to provide. Sorry, Mary. Go ahead.
All that's the big shiny light at the back of that is I'm still getting drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, old age Irish is what I keep saying when it comes to something like this. There was such a stigma attached to all this kind of stuff, and oh my God, people just don't want to get the help because they're getting all this other stuff as well, and plus they're getting money, and I don't know, it's frightening.
Yeah, but babies are worth a few quid. You know what I mean? They are. You know what I mean? You can get money when you have a baby. Now, don't get me wrong; it costs money to raise a baby as well. Yeah,
because it's feeding their addiction. Because I'm going to get the children's drugs and I'm going to get this, going to get that. And it shouldn't be like that. I don't think that if they don't accept these programs, then they shouldn't get any of that. And they still shouldn't, even while they're in their programs, they shouldn't get any of that because it's for the child. It's not for the parents. But parents don't look at it like that.
What are you saying, Dave?
I'm a parent myself, so
Dave, you have a baby.
Everything goes on them.
Dave,
you're just saying the great money makers.
No. If you're a bad parent,
I find it goes the opposite direction.
Look, if you're a bad parent, right, they're a good money maker because you don't look after them too well. But if you're a good parent, they're not. They cost you money. I mean, look, you get children's allowance. They also put you on a priority when it comes to housing. So there is benefits to having children. Now, I don't necessarily believe the myth that people or young women in particular who are single are going out having babies just to get a house or just to get up the ladder.
No, that's.
I think there probably is some. There probably are some who use it.
There are, yeah, but they're probably the exceptions to the rule. Really.
Yeah, rather than norm. Listen, lads, ladies, thank you very much indeed, Mary and Dave. You're both a rock of sense, actually. A lot of sensible people on the air tonight. What's going on? Anyway, we got to take a quick break. After the break, by the way, we'll talk to Kate, who wanted to talk to us just before the break there, but I didn't have time. I'll take one or two more on that. But I also want to talk about holidaying without the kids, because there's a guy doesn't want to go on holidays with his missus and the kids because the kids are a nightmare. And every holiday is ruined by the moaning, lack of appreciation, wasted money. He feels like he needs a holiday when he comes home. My mate, that's called being a parent. That's what being a parent is all about. Take the good or the bad. But he says, no, look, I don't want to go. Or I tell you what, why don't we go away without the kids? How about that? But she insists she's not going away without the children, even though she ends up crying because the kids cause so many problems sometimes. But she insists she is not going away without the children. She won't even go away for a weekend without the kids. That's how bad it is. And he's tearing his hair out saying, please, just let's have some us time. I need a holiday every time I come back with these little shits.
Real people, real opinions.
Real Talk Radio, the multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.